Good morning. We are here at Paul Quinn College, which means that we come out of the historically black college tradition, which is which is a tradition founded out of the black church. And the black church is a call and response tradition. So we're going to try this again because some of you all greeted me as if we were in mass at a Catholic church. All right? So let's try this again. Good morning. Good morning. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to Paul Quinn College, the home of the Quinnite Nation, and welcome to today's ACLU Forum on Smart Justice. Can we give a round of applause to the ACLU? So my name is Michael Sorrell. I'm the president here at Paul Quinn College, and it is an honor for us to host this morning. We believe in engaging in the issues that are important to the communities we serve. And one of the number one issues in these communities that we serve is crime. But not just crime, we're also talking about prison reform and justice reform, right? And there's some people who get confused about what all that means. So let's clear some things up. Number one, all of us believe in an orderly society. But we also believe in an orderly society in which the rules are applied fairly and justly. And if your rules are not applied fairly and justly, there can be no order. So we have to speak up. We teach our students all the time. We tell them closed mouths don't get fed. So the only way that you can make your views heard is to express them, is to engage in the issues of the day. At Paul Quinn, we have turned our entire institution outward, and that's what we do. We have built an institution that speaks to the needs of the communities we serve. When we were in a food desert, we turned our football field into a farm so that we could provide food for our community. We live in a society where the average student loan debt is $37,000. There's $1 trillion of student loan debt hanging over the heads of people who have bought into this aspect of the American dream. Our response was to convert our college to a work college. We're the first urban work college in the country. We reduced tuition and fees by $10,000 so our students would have a pathway of graduating from college owing less than $10,000. We understand, no, thank you. All of which leads us to here today because this is an issue that our community is passionate about, right? The DA's race is so important. And we've got wonderful candidates, right? And 66% of the candidates showed up this morning, okay? And we appreciate that. And let's say thank you to those who showed up, right? The first rule of leadership, what we teach our students, the first rule of leadership is what, Ayanna? Showing up, okay? This is Ayanna Watkins. She's one of our students at Paul Quinn College. I want to recognize her because it's 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, y'all. Okay? She's here. She's dressed nice. Look, she even took a shower, okay? All right? That's important, okay? I also would be remiss if I did not introduce you all to my son, Michael, in the back. Mike, wave at everybody. He is 7 and he spends his life doing things like this. Pray for him, y'all, okay? Pray for him. But I am going to turn the microphone over to Sharon Watkins-Jones, who is the political director for the ACLU. But before I leave, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for believing in the dream that we all can make a difference. Thank you for understanding that we all can make a difference. Thank you for showing up. And thank you for coming out on a Saturday morning to this part of the city and saying that we are doing okay. But if you like what we've done thus far, I promise you this, we are just warming up. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. Her parents are Paul Quinn College alums, right?
Thank you, Dr. Sorrell. He's right. Both my parents are Paul Quinn graduates. Thank you for your leadership and your service to this community, Dr. Sorrell. I want to say hello to all of you, and I want to acknowledge all of my ACLU colleagues of ACLU of Texas. You'll know us by our shirts. I want to welcome and thank our national ACLU staff who's here and some of my colleagues from other states. The first thing I want to do is to let you know that we're here to explore the role that district attorneys play in criminal justice reform. The fight to end mass incarceration in this state is going to take determination and resilience. So it's fitting that ground zero in Dallas County begins at Paul Quinn College, which was founded in 1873 rather, just 3 years after the 13th Amendment was passed and enslaved persons were freed. So there's a significance to its being here that I want to acknowledge. You may not know Paul Quinn was founded in Austin in 1872, moved to Waco in 1881, where my parents attended, and then to this campus in 1990, where it's continued to flourish, proving that a tenacious, determined, and resilient community can and will find a way not only to survive, but thrive. And that's why you're here. I also want you to know that the Texas affiliate of ACLU has been in this civil rights struggle since the 1960s. And in fact, after the Voting Rights Act was extended to Texas in the 70s, the legislature in retaliation passed laws to purge the entire voter registration rolls, 5 million Texans, and require all eligible voters to re-register. ACLU of Texas, on behalf of a Black Texas woman, 1 hour north of here in Sherman, Texas, named Ruby Flowers, successfully derailed that law, sued on her behalf and successfully derailed that law. So today we're here in Dallas County, and we're committed to a smart justice platform to reduce mass incarceration in this state and return the state's focus to people, not prisons. We are a nonpartisan organization, thank you, and we will not endorse any candidate, but we will work tirelessly to educate and motivate you to cast an informed vote in this race, as if your life depends on it, because it very well may. So I'm happy to introduce you to my colleague and my friend, Anthony Graves, who will moderate this event for us. And he will share his personal story, and as he does, it will become crystal clear to you why we refer to our reform initiatives as smart justice rather than criminal justice, because we make no assumptions about the innocence or guilt of anyone whose life intersects with policing, courts, and/or incarceration. We want fairness for all. So thank you so much for being here, and let's get this started.
That's right. Thank you. Is my mic on? You can hear me? Okay, we are here because the district attorney is one of the most powerful people in Dallas County. The district attorney chooses whether or not to charge someone with a crime and which crimes to prosecute. They influence state and local laws, and they decide who gets a second chance and who will face the possibility of prison, or sometimes even a death sentence, something that I know about. The choice of the next district attorney will have a long-lasting impact on families and communities. For decades, the district attorney here in Dallas County has been a major force in driving incarceration, resulting in disproportionate prison sentences, especially for people of color and poor people. Wrongful convictions, death sentences, and sending people with addictions, disabilities, and mental illness into jails and prisons instead of supporting them with treatment and social services. That has to stop. Okay. We keep innocent, poor people in jail simply because they cannot afford to pay bail. And many immigrant families lose everything because of brushes with the law. Today, though, we look forward to what is possible. These candidates want your vote, and you need to decide if they deserve it. Our goal is to challenge the candidates you see in front of you to reshape our communities and our criminal justice system for the good of all. We will do this by asking them to discuss how they think and where they stand on issues like reducing mass incarceration, reducing racial bias in our criminal justice system, transparency and accountability. If you want to know more information about the ACLU of Texas or to read the candidates' previous responses to our questionnaires, go to dallasda.org. That's dallasda.org. At the end of the forum, we will be asking questions from the audience. So you guys are going to participate. Okay. If you have a question, we ask that you write it on an index card clearly and put it in the box at the back by the 12 o'clock. I don't know where the 12 o'clock is, but it's in the back. That's in a little more than 30 minutes, okay? So whatever questions you may have, you can start thinking about them and writing them down, okay? We ask that your questions be directed at both candidates. We will collect these and select audience questions randomly, getting through as many as time allows, and giving you each a minute to answer that question. We'd ask the audience not to applaud or make noise in reactions to the candidates. We are here to hear from them, and this will keep us with a tight schedule, all right? But we don't want to disrespect our candidates. We want to be informed, and the only way we can be informed is we listen to our candidates, okay? Let's not talk over them. Let's give them that respect, all right? Now, we are going to review the rules and introduce the candidates running for district attorney who are here with us today. Here are the rules. They are very simple. For each question, candidates, you will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. All right? We have a timer facing you. All right? And if you decide to get on some long soliloquy, she's going to tell you stop. When the timer gets to 0, it will chime. Okay? And we ask that you answer each question directly. If I do not feel you've answered the question, I will follow up. Okay. All right, the candidates joining us today, and let me just say this, this is the only time I like for you guys to give an applause, okay? So, the candidates joining us today are the Honorable Elizabeth Frizzell, and the Honorable John Cruzup. We also invite the Republican district attorney candidate, the current district attorney, Faith Johnson, but she declined our invitation. She's running the county, the city. So now we'll begin. But before we begin, let me just give you a brief introduction of who I am and why I have been selected to sit in this seat. I lost my freedom for 18.5 years. I was sentenced to death for a crime I knew absolutely nothing about. I spent 12.5 years in solitary confinement. I watched many men get murdered around me. And also I watched many men take their own lives. Not because they were guilty, and I'm not saying if they were guilty or innocent, but because of the conditions that we existed under. Not lived, existed. We were treated very inhumanely. Our criminal justice system failed us to its core, and that propelled me to get involved in making the changes that are necessary. So I'm sitting here today because I was fortunate enough to land a position with the ACLU of Texas as their manager of their Smart Justice Initiative. I'm so grateful for that. So. Now, that's enough about me, but anyway. Now, let's just begin with a few introductory questions, all right? And the first question is going to be to you, Ms. Frizzell. Please tell us who you are, and in your answer, explain to the people here why you want to be the next Dallas County District Attorney.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And before I start, thank you to the ACLU for giving us this platform. Thank you to my wonderful husband. I always leave that to the end, and then I forget. My #1 supporter, and my son is here. So thank you all so much. I'm Judge Elizabeth Davis Frizzell. And there's one reason, and one reason only, that I want to be DA. And it's because I want to reduce mass incarceration. You see, I wasn't shocked when I heard about all the wrongful convictions when Craig Watkins got in office, because I used to try those cases. And many times, if I was winning as a defense lawyer, I was a defense lawyer for 13 years. Before Craig Watkins, there were no defense lawyers who were DAs. In fact, they talked about him and laughed at him. Why are you trying to be a prosecutor? Your history is as a public defender, as a defense lawyer. I'm like, why not? If your goal is to reform the system, isn't a defense lawyer the perfect person to look at the holes in the system and where it needs to be corrected? So my 13 years trying every type of case, from theft to rape, robbery, murder, capital murder, let me know. When I'm winning a case, that Republican judge on the bench often used to kick in just to make sure it went the way they thought it should go. That's not fairness, and that's not justice. So when the cases started coming back as wrongful convictions, I wasn't surprised, because I saw so much in the courtroom that was geared toward conviction because they believed that person was the right person. I'm applying with you for district attorney. This DA was appointed, but I think the DA should be chosen by the people right here in Dallas County, not by a Republican in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Judge Cruzon, could you tell us why you want to be Dallas County District
Well,
Attorney?
also, thank you. We appreciate you being here, appreciate the great crowd, and appreciate President Sorrell for allowing us to come here to this wonderful institution. I've been here since it was Bishop College, when it was a football field out there, actually, coming to a football game, so been around a bit. Anyway, I'm running for district attorney because I am an agent of change. I want you to know that when nobody was doing anything about this, when we were looking at mass incarceration and building up to 150,000 prisons, 20 years ago in January of 1998, we started the Divert Court program, myself and a team of other people here. What we did is took people, we didn't indict them, we didn't make them plead guilty, we put them through treatment, we cured the problem, and we dismissed the case. We showed a 50 to 60% reduction in recidivism, okay, rearrest. During that, we also, for every dollar spent, saved $9.34. That has expanded into different types of programs, but those different types of programs are all now about 300 programs. In the process, we've closed 8 prisons. It's been suggested that I don't have any proof of the 8 prisons, so let me give you the proof. Central Prison Unit, Sugar Land, Jesse Dawson State Jail, Mineral Wells Transfer Facility, Bartlett State Jail, Dick Ware Transfer Facility, Bridgeport Transfer Facility, West Texas Intermediate Sanction Facility, and the South Texas Facility. We have worked on starting the end of mass incarceration in the state of Texas through our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, the second question is, people of color make up more than 46% of the city's jail population, even though they only account for under 24% of Dallas population overall. What specific steps would you take to reduce this disparity? You have 90 seconds. Start with Judge Cruzon.
First of all, we have a horrible data collection system in Dallas County. As your district attorney, one of my planks in my platform, so to speak, is to study exactly where these disparities are occurring. We know there's disparity, okay? But we don't know where it is. To the extent that it could be coming from dispositions and recommendations in the district attorney's office, we have no idea. We know it comes from arrest. We know it winds up in sentences. But in between those two things, we don't know. So what I want to do is to partner and to collaborate, not only with the state of Texas, hopefully through legislation, but other outside groups, and we have some here, to do an actual study of what we're doing in the district attorney's office. I'm not talking about the arrest, okay? We know what those are, and we know what the sentences are. But what is the district attorney's office role, if any, in that? And that is something that has never been done. You think about it. Whenever you hear about disparity in sentencing, nobody's ever talked about breaking down what the district attorney's office has done anywhere in this country, okay? And it's time that we do that. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to collaborate. I'm willing to work with our legislators, perhaps to make it mandatory through legislation. But certainly, if not, I'm not going to wait for that. We're going to seek out partners. We're going to seek out the answers. And we're going to do everything we can to correct it.
Let me ask you, sir, Mr. Cruzon, would you seek out partnership with community leaders? And what role would they be able to play in your office?
Well, I think that you can't run an effective office without partnership with community leaders.
Okay.
For example, let's take Divert Court. We couldn't have done that without community leaders. We had an actual board that we used for years, and we had people involved in law enforcement and treatment, in psychological and psychiatric services, I'm a judge, a lawyer. I'm not skilled in that. I have other people there who are probation officers. They're not skilled in social work. So we have people come in from that. And that's how we put together a team to come up with the effective result. So I really don't think in criminal justice today, when we're talking about smart justice and we're talking about ending mass incarceration, that you can think that you can just do it on your own. You have to bring in partners. You have to bring in community organizations. You need their knowledge, their skill, and you need their hard work and their hard work to get it done.
Thank you, sir. Judge Frizzell, same question. What would you do to reduce this disparity?
Anthony said something that stood out in my mind in the introduction. He said, you all want to find out how we think. And that's one of the most important things you need to take out of today. How do we think? What is the difference in how we think? It's about the training of the prosecutors. I learned way back when I started trying cases, many prosecutors are trained to give black people longer sentences. I'm telling you what I've lived. They'll give you 60 years on a case that's worth 40. 40 years on a case that's worth 20. A case that's clearly a probation case, no priors, nonviolent. They're asking for pen time for 5 years. We've got to get African-American prosecutors. The reason I brought up Craig Watkins, before Craig Watkins, he was one of the first defense lawyers to become a DA. I used to go to those other DAs. I was down there under John Vance, Bill Hill, all of them. And I asked them, why don't we have more black prosecutors? Well, we can't find them. Well, I graduated from Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I knew all of my classmates would have been glad to get a job. Well, are you looking for them? If you can't find them, you're not looking. Well, Craig Watkins found them. He just endorsed me. You know why I'm proud of that? Because he did the two things that were important to me, and I used to complain to these former DAs about. Hiring more minorities as prosecutors, so when they see another minority, they can relate to where they're coming from and not be harsher because they have no clue. And number two, the DNA testing. It's got to be continued. Haven't heard anything about it in 4 years. If we get a DA that will train our prosecutors not to be overly harsh with minorities, we start to reduce mass incarceration. It starts with how the prosecutors think. 90% of the cases are plea bargain and never see trial.
So do you think that we're in this country that, 90-some% of elected DAs across our nation are white? Do you think that's a civil rights problem that should be addressed?
Is it a civil rights problem? Well, I'm trying to correct that. I'll be one of the African-American DAs here. I want to go across the country and teach people, here's how we did it in Dallas. If there's a white DA somewhere else, fine. White, pink, purple, blue, be fair. Be fair to everyone there. I want to go and train them. Here's how we change the cash bond system to a cashless system. Train these other DAs, no matter what color they are, across the state, across the nation. Bail bonds should not be based on money. Bail bonds should not be based on money. We take someone and we take them, even if it's a nonviolent offense. They're not necessarily criminals because it's pre-indictment, pre-conviction. They might not even have an offense that we have to be safe from them, but they're locked in jail because they have no money. This guy over in Highland Park killed his wife, decapitated her. They set the bond at $300,000. Bonding companies charge 10%. So for $30,000, he can get out. He had $30,000 cash because he was rich and he got out. At the same time, I'm representing somebody that they accused of breaking into somebody's home. Set the bond at $15,000. I successfully argued to get it reduced to $1,500. That means 10% of that he could get out. $150, but he didn't have $150. That's not fairness and that's not justice.
Thank you. All right, the third question is, and we'll start with you, Ms. Frizzell, okay? Get a chance, get a little water. What responsibility do you believe prosecutors have to reduce incarceration in our criminal justice system? You have 90 seconds.
I believe they have a great responsibility. Prosecutors right now are trained to start at the high end of sentencing. They start off with 30 years when they know it's not a 30-year case, just so they can reset it a couple of weeks. They do it to me every day. I stepped down from the bench to run for this, March of last year. In this very room is when I first decided that I was going to run, almost a year ago. So I'm back in private practice. Right now, under the current DA, they start at 30 and then they reset it. Then they come down to 20. Then they come down to 10. I want to train my prosecutors to start at the low end. The first thing a prosecutor should be trained to do is see if there's a diversion program this person will qualify for. Look at the offense, see if they have any priors. Let's see if this kid can get in the DWI program, the mental health program, the drug rehab program, the veterans program, my Star Court program that helps ladies get out of a lifestyle of prostitution and human trafficking. Do you fit in any of these categories? If it's too serious for that, let's look at probation. Too serious for that? Let's look at a minimum amount of time and then work their way up. But they don't do that. They start at the high end and work their way down. And you know what they've done to me many times, and any defense lawyers here know this? They'll offer you 20 years and you say, my guy's not taking 20 years, let's go to trial. And in trial, they argue to the jury for 60. Even though they've just told you privately it's only worth 20. That's not fairness or justice. If you think it's worth 20, I won't take it. Go to trial and argue for 20 to the jury. But don't go there and argue for 60. It's not fair, it's not just, and they're still doing it right now under Faith Johnson's administration. I need to change that.
So, Judge Guzzo, I'm asking that same question. What responsibilities do you believe prosecutors have to reduce incarceration in our criminal justice system?
I think it's a legal and a moral and an ethical responsibility to reduce incarceration in the criminal justice system. I don't know anything about this offering cases 30 years on every case. I've never had that happen to me. I've had recommendations that are more appropriate to the case, depending on the case. Okay? The vast majority of people, and the numbers show, the vast majority of people who come through the criminal justice system actually wind up with a probated sentence. Okay? If it's a violent offense, of course, then you start seeing the recommendations go up. That's where you see that. But as far as training, one of the things that I didn't say and wanted to say when I talked about what is the role of the DA's office in disparity in sentencing is a retraining. Because right now what the DA's office does, this DA's office, and many across the nation, especially the ACLU, you all know that, is they focus on case disposition. And they focus on some type of case disposition that puts a record on the person. And we know better than that. How could we achieve what we did in divert court with no record at all? So what we need to do is expand the number of cases and expand the number of individuals who are eligible for programs that they can get through the program, if it even needs to be a program. There's not necessarily so that because a person's arrested, they need a program. But at the end of a certain period of time, that whole thing goes away so that they don't have a criminal record. Because let me tell you, every time you give somebody a criminal record, you put it on their spouse, you put it on their children, and you impact them negatively in their lives for the rest of their lives. And we can stop doing that.
All right, well, I'm gonna get a chance to even continue, Judge Guzzo, because I'm gonna come back to you. What changes would you make to strengthen the conviction integrity unit in Dallas County? And I'm assuming they have one because Craig Watkins used it effectively. What changes would you make to strengthen the conviction integrity unit in Dallas County, which handles complaints dealing with wrongful convictions? And will you commit to working directly with an outside advisory board, including organizations such as the Innocent Project, to have them make recommendations about the integrity unit's policies and staffing, aid in case reviews, and weigh in on recommended actions? I know that's a long question. All right.
Who are you asking?
I'm asking you, sir.
Okay.
Want me to read it again?
The second part, working with the Innocence Project, absolutely, unequivocally, yes. Because once again, you need a collaborative effort to get this done. And you need the minds and the ideas of people not only here, but across the nation to get it done. Now, the first part, strengthen the conviction integrity unit,
sir.
was that your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Number one, strengthen it to a full staff, whatever that needs to be. And right now, without the inside information, I'd say at least 5, perhaps more. But put it up to what it needs to be with individuals, lawyers who are trained to do that. But let me tell you another thing that's a little different about my suggestion about this. As a case, the integrity of a case begins at the time it's brought into the DA's office by the police agencies, and it extends all the way until an appeal. And right now, the Conviction Integrity Unit operates as a separate unit. What really needs to happen in my platform is that the Conviction Integrity Unit has supervisory power over all of that, including and especially including training. And we talk about retraining, okay? But the training of the ethics and the integrity and the morals and the law and the statutes regarding exculpatory evidence, mitigating evidence, and how to turn that over. I think we both understand that sometimes there's a problem, and sometimes we see it, that it's not turned over. Sometimes it's not given over by the police departments, and that causes a big problem too. So I would expand it, and I would expand its role, and I would give it more primacy in the district attorney's office.
Thank you, sir. Judge Frizzell, same question. You want me to read it for you?
No, I think I've got it.
All right.
I think I've got it. The conviction integrity unit needs to be expanded to at least 3 to 5 prosecutors. At least 3 to 5. Conviction integrity unit is still there, I guess. We don't hear anything about it from Faith. It's just sitting there dormant. Why? We're #1 in wrongful convictions in Dallas County, #1 in the nation. 32 wrongful convictions. And you just let the unit sit there when we happen to have DNA to be tested? Why don't we test it? I will commit to you as your next district attorney to the first 100 days I'm in office to reestablish that conviction integrity unit, not only get the Innocence Project to partner with me. I want you to be on there, Anthony. I want exonerees to be on there to tell me, how did you get wrongfully convicted so we can stop this? That's the way you stop it. 18 of the wrongful convictions was from false IDs. We've got to get more people in conviction integrity unit. Listen to this. State of Texas versus Herbie Bowser. That's a case that here recently was in the DA's office. In that case, the conviction integrity unit, the prosecutors had to recuse themselves. There was only one. And you know why she recused? Because her husband was a prosecutor and he later became a judge. So she had a conflict of interest. But she was the only one in the conviction integrity unit. So that was their reason for not sending it through that unit. And they pushed him on to a death sentence. He hasn't been executed yet. Come on, folks. We need 3 to 5 prosecutors. It will be funded. It can be funded. And that's fairness. That's justice. That's what I'll do as district attorney.
With some time left. That's good. All right. So we are now going to move to questions from people here in Dallas County who have been affected by the criminal justice system and the decisions of the district attorney. For each question, candidates, you will have 90 seconds to respond. The first question will be asked by Dominique Walker. Can you stand up, please? Okay. And no, we're not gonna give no applause. We're just gonna keep it like this.
Hi, my name is Dominique. I've lived in Dallas County almost my entire life. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and our lives have been completely thrown into chaos due to the criminal justice system's involvement with her father's life. Anytime we attempted to contact the DA's office, it was just a severe lack of transparency and accessibility. So my question to you is, will you commit to having someone in your office dedicated to transparency for the families of incarcerated individuals?
Absolutely. And you said we have how long? Absolutely. And that's,
right there.
thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you for that question. Do you know right now, just as being a candidate for district attorney, people find me on Facebook and Instagram. I wasn't on any of that stuff till I ran. They said I had to get on there. And I did. And they find me and they say, I'm trying to contact the DA. They won't call me back, or they call me and then they don't follow up on when it's going to trial. I had one young lady that said the case was set for trial. We had 10 witnesses lined up. And then when they kept calling back and saying, I hadn't heard from you in a couple of weeks, what's going on? They said, oh, the case has already been pled. She's like, well, I pled? I wanted to get on that stand and tell what was going on. Shouldn't she have at least known that the case was pled? Some of it is just having interaction. We're not going to always make decisions that everyone agrees with. We're going to try to get it the best we can based on the facts. But at least you can call them back and say, here's what's going on. Here's what we decided to do. Here's why we're going to plead it. I think you should consider what the victims want as an outcome in the case. Just like you should consider the families of the defendant. I was the family violence judge for 8 years. I had many victims come in front of me and say, look, Judge, I filed the case, but now I'm back with them. I love them. Can you drop the no contact order? Many times I'd say, no, I can't do that. You're going to be dead, ma'am. Your standards are lower than me. Don't go back to him until he's proven he's changed. I think people can change. I can't change you, but they can change themselves. Let them change first before you go back. I don't want you to be a statistic. This is us interacting with people as human beings, and that's what people want in a DA.
Judge Cruz.
Well, I'll tell you one that's better than that. This will give you a kick. I had a family member arrested who's severe alcoholic, and not here, somewhere else. And I tried to call the DA's office to express that this person needed treatment, not back time, and they hung up on me. I called again, and they told me we don't talk to family members. And I had to make a whole lot of phone calls until I got there. That seems to be not just here, but elsewhere, okay? I have people who hire me or try to hire me. I won't do it because I don't think it's really something to be hired for, to communicate with the DA's office what their problems and issues are, not only with themselves, but with family members. So that is a huge problem. So the answer to your question is yes, we need to straighten that out. Yes, I will commit to it. Yes, we need someone someone in the victim services section, okay, dedicated to that. And it may be that there are more questions and phone calls than one person, okay, because lots of emails, you haven't thought about that, go unanswered. Do you know that you can't even go on the Dallas County DA's website and figure out what a particular prosecutor's email is? How about some transparency there? How about let's put that down? Let's make that, let's post that, let's post their phone numbers, let's post how to access them and give them an ability, for you, an ability to reach them to get something back. If you don't get a reasonable response, that should be reported into the correct section, the victim advocacy section, and something should be done from a higher level about it. But you deserve that respect.
Okay, let's move to the second question. And it's going to be asked by Roderick Johnson.
My name is Roderick Johnson. I'm a veteran and was incarcerated here in Texas. And I was the victim of sexual slavery while incarcerated. And what I ask is, when these people go into the system, I went in with a drug and alcohol abuse problem. And while I was incarcerated, there was absolutely nothing done at all. So what my question is are you going to appoint someone from your office that's going to work with existing programs that already work with the people that are coming through your system here and try and have treatment over just using jails?
Let's start with Judge Crizo on that, and then we'll follow.
Let me ask some clarification on your question, if you don't mind. Are you talking about while the case is pending or after the person is released? Which one of those two are you talking about?
I'm talking about while the case is pending.
Okay. We have about 13 to 16 or 17, I can't remember exactly, number of programs right now that are designed to deal with individuals while the cases are pending. The problem is they're too narrow and they're not expanded out to enough people, okay? So what they're looking at is cases and things like that, what your case is as opposed to what your problem is, okay? And that's why I've said criminal justice ought not be about numbers, it ought to be about people, okay? That's why I talk about crime reduction, because if I deal with your underlying situation, whether it be drugs, alcohol, and or mental health, and I put you in a program and you're successful, then it's less likely that you're going to do what? Commit a new crime. That's called crime reduction. When we train judges and we train prosecutors, we retrain prosecutors to look at those assessments and to want them and to desire them and to follow them. That's how we do things like close 8 prisons in the state of Texas. That didn't come about by an accident. That came about by a concerted effort across a range of criminal justice professionals to do that. And so the answer to your question is yes, I will commit to that. We will improve what we have, we will expand into more things, and we'll do more things to solve those underlying problems and reduce crime.
Judge Fazell.
Thank you for that question, sir. That's an excellent question. I actually believe those drug cases where it's an addiction should not go through the criminal justice system. It should be a true diversion. If I am rich and my family sends me to a country club, Beverly Hills drug rehab, and I relapse, I go back home. I don't go through the system because I didn't have a criminal case. My family just thought, hey, you have a drug problem, let's put you in this program. Do you know most people relapse 7 times before they get clean? Now, this is nothing against drug rehab programs because I think they're great. I had a drug rehab program as a part of Star Court in mental health. But most of those ladies, I didn't take anybody that didn't have a record as long as they're on. Most of those ladies relapse many, many, many times. The way our diversion programs work, when you relapse, you go to jail as a punishment. Then you come back out, you go back through the program. Then you relapse, you go to jail. Why are we going to jail over this? Why can't we just truly divert it and say, hold it, stop. The criminal case stops here. We're going to put you in this rehab. Do you know I've had people come to me as a district judge and say, I'd rather go to prison than to rehab. We send them to safety. We send them to Wilmer. Because they disrespect them. They talk to them like they're crazy. They've told me this. Some of them have graduated and came back and said, I was scared to say this before because I thought if you didn't believe me, then I go back to the program. I've graduated, I'm out. There are people down there that are, one day the guy is sweeping the floor. The next day he's doing counseling to us. And then he reprimands us. One guy got reprimanded for reading a book. when he wasn't supposed to read it. They put him in a corner for 8 hours, sitting in a chair looking in a corner. That's not drug rehabilitation. We shouldn't send that through the criminal system. Let's get true diversion, true drug rehab that is outside of that criminal justice system.
So, Ms. Frizzell, so to his question, will you commit to working with organizations, programs that would deal with them while their cases are pending?
Absolutely. I get a little excited. Yes, I will absolutely commit to working with drug programs.
I just want you to let them know.
Yes.
All right, that's good. Now, the next question will be asked by Robbie Frazier.
Hi, my name is Robbie Frazier, and I am a recovering drug addict whom in the past would steal to support my habit, which caused me incarceration. I've never been locked up over a year at one time, but over a course of 10 years, I was in jail for 5 of those years, which caused my mom, then 80, now 105, to have to care for my children. My question is, would you be willing to commit to finding another way, and it's been talked about with the, instead of incarcerating us, to get treatment for those, because going in and out of jail and my problem is not being taken care of is only going to make the problem worse. So I am wanting to know that if you would commit to treatment instead of incarcerating for drug addicts.
Judge Frizzell.
Absolutely. Yes. I will commit to treatment instead of incarceration. This is how we get to mass incarceration, folks. Over 50% of the people have that come through our criminal justice system have some type of drug addiction. That's how we get to mass incarceration. We talked about in another debate about mandatory minimums. Mandatory minimums are in federal court. We're running to be DA at state court. They don't have mandatory minimums. You got probation, 5 years to 99 years of life. There's a big range there. So since we don't have mandatory minimums, we have to really look at these drug cases and make sure we're not just shoveling them in the system. So if I have a drug case and I'm saying, look, we're not going to do diversion programs, we're not going to do drug rehabilitation, we're putting them in the system, especially on state jails, 180 days to 2 years. They do their little time, they get out, and then they're coming back. Then they do their time, they get out, and then they're coming back. I want to partner. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Do you know there's so many people that have approached me and probably Judge Crusoe about programs they want to partner with the DA's office in? All we have to do is agree to partner with them. I just met with somebody last week about the OK program. It's a mentoring program for African-American males. We can do the same thing with drug rehab. Just partner with them. It's how you think as a DA. Do you want to change this? It's not just our resume. Henry Wade had a great resume. Most of the wrongful convictions took place underneath his administration. Sure, we have to have the resume. I was a prosecutor, defense lawyer, judge on every level short of the Court of Appeals. But you also have to have the mindset to reform the system. I want to end mass incarceration because I have the mindset to do so.
Okay, Judge Frizzell, are you going to commit to these type of programs that basically are diversionary programs over just incarceration when someone is standing in front of you with a drug addiction?
You talking to her?
Yeah,
I'm
because
sorry.
she spoke, but she
Okay.
never did tell them that she was going to commit to it.
I started off with yes. Didn't I say yes first?
Because she over there
Then I
like,
explained my yes.
she like, ask her.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just taking my cue. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Judge Crusoe.
I think the answer is yes, and we both agree. The situation is, here's the problem, is the DA's office, how does the DA's office get cases? From the police departments, right? It's an arrest, and they file it as a case. So the question is the DA legally or morally or ethically obligated to treat it as a criminal justice case when the underlying issue is a public health problem? Addiction is a public health problem, okay? Now, depending on the severity of the addiction, if it's low level or if it's just consequential, it's just an every once in a while, we don't have to prosecute those cases as a criminal case. We can move those cases on. The problem is, in the state of Texas, because of the Republican legislature, we have poorly funded, on-demand, what? Treatment. You know it. Everybody in this room knows it. I've been on several boards of nonprofits. One of the biggest problems we have is funding for people who are not in the criminal justice system, but whose parents or they are seeking treatment and effective treatment. And the problem is we don't have it. But within the criminal justice system, there are more people than we currently deal with that we can push them through and use them and be effective with them without them having a criminal record and being caught up in jails and prisons and doing all that. We can do that. I know we can and we will.
Fantastic. So the fourth question will be from a guy named Richard Miles.
A guy named. Like we don't know him.
I appreciate you guys for coming out and your service. My name is Richard Miles. I'm the founder and president of Miles of Freedom. I'm also one of the Dallas exonerees, wrongfully convicted, sentenced to 60 years, and spent 15 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. My question is in regards to the Michael Morton Act, particularly because it requires prosecutors to give defense attorneys any evidence relevant to a defendant's guilt or punishment. What is your understanding of this act, and what will you do to ensure a defendant has full disclosure of all evidence before prosecution?
Judge Guzzo.
First of all, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Miles. We appreciate it. We appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to ask a question. The Michael Morton Act is just what he says. It requires prosecutors to basically open up their files. It's a big super open file policy. The problem is, and I think we both agree with it, they don't always follow it.
Right.
Okay? Let me give you an example. I have a case right now I represent a person on. I just got the autopsy photos. This case has been around for a while. I don't have the crime scene photos. And I found out that the police officer has a whole nother set of photos that he has not submitted to what? The DA to give to who? To me, so I can effectively represent him. Okay? And the problem is there are different policies across these 30-plus filing agencies. As district attorney, what I promise to do to you, for you, and for this criminal justice system is sit down with these police chiefs in a collaborative fashion, and let's get some consistent policies with some penalties, even if they're administrative, for failing to turn over this evidence in a timely manner. There's no reason I shouldn't have all of this, okay? That's a game. Give me some evidence, give me some. I go to the prosecutor, he's a nice kid. I just don't have it. How about asking for it? Where are the crime scene photos? I don't know. Dude, get on the phone, call, ask. I used to do it. Be pushy, assert yourself, do something. Until we have some type of an administrative penalty for failure to abide by it on these prosecutors and police officers, we'll always be in that little conundrum that you're talking about.
Let me follow up with something, Judge Guzzo.
Yes, sir.
With that being said, you know, I'm big on transparency.
Yes.
The Michael Morton Act, the Brady Act, you know, very little distinction between the two, in my opinion, right? I just thought the Michael Morton Act was a mirror of the Brady, okay? Very little distinction because prosecutors can still use discretion on a work product to keep out exculpatory evidence. What would your policy be in your office to where that would be a violation of that policy?
Turn over everything immediately. If you don't have it, get on the phone and get it. And let me tell you why. Okay, back in my day, we didn't have the Michael Morton Act, and we didn't have the internet either when I was working at the DA's office. Okay, and we had push-button phones, and I learned how to use one. Okay, and when I first got a case, the first thing I did on an important case, let's say it's a murder case or a sexual assault case, first thing I did, call up the ME's office. I need the autopsy report, I need my pictures. I need my crime scene photos. I need this, I need that, I need the other. Now you explain to me why today somebody can't do the same thing. If they fail to do it within a reasonable time, they ought to be disciplined within the office. But it's bigger than that. You have to involve the police because they don't give it to them. They don't have it to give it to you. That's why I'm saying this is a bigger picture than just what a particular prosecutor does.
Right.
It involves more of the system than that.
Judge Frizell.
My policy in the office will be very similar to the one in Tarrant County. When I was in private practice before I became a judge, when we went over to Tarrant County and had a case, you could physically go in a room with copy machines and copy the DA's file. So they couldn't hide anything. It was right there. They had the right to redact certain information because some of it is work product. I don't have to tell you my original thought on how I'm going to try the case. That can be redacted. We go through with a black marker through certain private information that was work product. Other than that, I copied it myself. I went through and copied. We'd stand in the copy room, and most of the times, it's not that much to copy, guys. Sometimes it is. We sitting there, and they'd have somebody watch us, make sure we're not taking anything out of the file. Why can't we do that so I know I have everything? Many times I've been sitting in trial, and then all of a sudden this witness is talking about something that I know wasn't in the file. Then when I look through it, the judges say, well, I asked for mistrials and everything. It's going to be denied. And then they say, well, I'm going to give you 3 to 5 minutes to review it real quick before the jury comes in. That's not fairness or justice. The second thing is we need to have some type of punishment. Look at, even in Anthony's case, the guy got disbarred, and that's the worst punishment you get. He spent 16 years in a penitentiary. Why can't that
18 and a half. Give me my 2 and a half.
Excuse me, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Give me that. I got paid for that. Come on.
Wait a minute. Why can't that prosecutor go to jail? If it's conscious disregard where it's intentional, not an accident, but intentional, you're sending someone to the penitentiary intentionally, and the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court says you did it intentionally, why can't you go to jail? Until you have punishments like that, they're going to keep hiding that stuff in those files, and you'll have wrongful convictions.
Okay. All right. We don't want no applause. We want to be informed, and the best way we can be informed is we've got to keep listening. Okay? So with that being said, Judge Frizzell, let me ask you this. So what will happen to a prosecutor who violated your policy under the Morton Act?
It depends on, I'm sorry, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
It depends on what the violation is. If you're somebody young and just got your bar card, just got out of law school, it's not intentional, maybe you need to be retrained. I have to understand that when you first come in, I'm going to have a whole training session on all my new prosecutors coming in. Let's train so you understand what your obligation is. I used to win my cases as a prosecutor and as a defense lawyer. I don't have to hide any evidence. I want you to have it all. So when I win, I win. If I train my new prosecutors, then first of all, you shouldn't have that accidental problem. But the second thing, then fire them if you know it's intentional. And the third thing is, if you're past the training, that wasn't an issue, it might have been intentional, but you don't know whether it rises to the level of them going to jail, then just get them out of the office. I had somebody hide evidence that was a prosecutor in my office. Do you know, I told the people upstairs, they fired her. She ended up being a prosecutor down in Ellis County. And later she got disbarred from Ellis County doing the same thing she did in misdemeanor. Of course, she just went to another county. We've got to stop that. We need a consistent policy to make sure they stop doing this in any county.
And I like that sound. I mean, that really sounds great. I think it's a great idea. But if this prosecutor doing his mistake, sending someone to death row, you just want to retrain him?
No, I'm talking about if it's something where they hit something, it comes in, I don't even know if they get a conviction or not. If it's just a training problem, no, they send them to death row. Why isn't that same prosecutor being prosecuted?
Okay.
I think they should be prosecuted in certain cases. I know it's a factual scenario, case-by-case basis, but it shouldn't be off the table for them to be facing charges if it's intentional, conscious disregard for the law.
Fantastic. All right. Now, we're going to move on to our fifth question, and that's going to be by Roderick McNeely.
Good morning, sir and ma'am. My name is Roderick McNeely, as he stated. I'm 59 years old. I've been to prison 3 times. I had a real bad drug addiction for 29 of those 59 years. Not one time was I offered help to address my addiction problem. That also affected my family in the fact that I missed out on the developmental years of all 3 of my children. And I truly believe in my heart that if I'd have been offered some help, I'd have been there for my children. We've already established that drug addiction is a public health issue. So my question is to you today, if you're elected district attorney of Dallas County, will you commit to setting goals that are measurable to reduce mass incarceration by the end of your first term? And if yes, what exactly is that plan? And if no, why not?
Judge Frizzell.
Yes, absolutely. What you do is you have transparency. Every quarter, you make sure you put your statistics on your website so everybody can see. Texas Organizing Project, ACLU, whoever wants to see it, so you see here's where I started in my stats. Here's where I am after the first quarter. Here's where I am after the second quarter. Every quarter you make it public. I want to reduce crime, reduce the number of people that go in the criminal justice system by 8 people per month. 8 people. I know I can do that. Just that will save us $2.1 million. 8 people per month. An average of 5,600 people come through our criminal justice system here in Dallas County every month. It costs $63 a day to lock them up. So if we can reduce it by just 8 people every month, that can save us money. So here's how you get to the 8 people. Number 1, the diversion programs. Right now, my personal experience in being private practice for 13 years, and since I've been back out in private practice for the last 10 months, is I have defense lawyers that recommend one of the 18 diversion programs we have here in Dallas County, but the prosecutors do not. I need to retrain them. You can recommend as a sentencing recommendation, this program is appropriate as far as diversion. As a prosecutor, write it on your rec sheet. I very seldom see them doing that. That's going to reduce crime right there. I, as a prosecutor, think this person's appropriate for this program. That's number 1. Number 2, bail bonds. If we can get these people where they're not stuck in jail, they're not pleading to all the stuff they didn't do. They take a probation, they're irresponsible, so they don't make it on probation. They go into that pipeline to prison. That's what needs to stop.
Judge Cazal.
8 people a month sounds kind of low to me for all the people that get arrested in Dallas County. You think about that. You think about the hundreds of people every week who go through the felony courts and the hundreds of people a week who go through the misdemeanor courts. And you tell me 8 people is your goal? I think we can do much better than that, okay? Number 1, we're passing up information. We have risk assessment tools that we're not paying attention to. And they tell us who's a high risk, a medium risk, and a low risk, okay? We ought to be paying attention to it. It's the same type of tool we ought to be paying attention to on bail bonds, which I agree, okay? We need to talk about bail bond reform, and we need to be serious about it, but we can only do it collaboratively with the judges and the commissioner's court and the community. But we can stop, we can reduce jail population. But your question is a bigger one than that. Setting goals at the end of the term, yes. Okay, right now I can tell you 8 is way low for me, okay? I think it can be larger. I can think it can be a bigger number than that, okay? I don't see why we can't divert, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, so excuse me, okay? But I don't know why we can't change the trajectory of 30 lives a month with all of the people we come through there. Now, I don't know which court you went through, but if you did not come through my court, I'm sorry that you didn't, because you would have gone to SafeP. Because there are a lot, in fact, some of you have come up here, some of you in this room know, okay? You would have gone to SafeP, you would have been put in a reentry program, and we would have saved you and your family a lifetime of hell of addiction.
Could I just clarify something real
Yes,
quick?
ma'am.
Okay, when I say 8 people per month, there's 17 district courts, 13 misdemeanor courts. That's 30 courts just in the criminal, 8 per court. So isn't that the same as your 30? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I need to clarify. I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
We still listening, okay? So at this time, I would like to remind everyone that if you would like to have a question asked of the candidate, to please take it and put it back out. At this, no more? That's it? Da-da-da? All right, let's move it along. Now, we have some partners that are here with us as well. And I think someone would take care of that for you. All right, thank you. We have some partners here that are from different organizations. One is the Texas Organizing Project. And we have a member here named Pearl Harper who wants to ask the question. Thank you, Pearl.
Hi, good evening. My name is Pearline Harper, and I live in West Dallas, and I was wrongly convicted, and I'm sorry.
No, take your
You
time.
need my glasses? It's hard to read those things.
Okay.
You need them?
I was, no, I have my glasses.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Okay.
That's
Take your
all right.
time.
We want your question.
Okay.
You gotta hurry up a little bit now. I mean, I'm just kidding.
John, could you help me? Ron? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, ma'am, this is what we're here for, okay? This is important enough to wait.
Okay, I was wrongly convicted 45 years ago, and by a cop named J.J. Terrell. He harassed me and my family, and I was sentenced to 5 years in the state penitentiary. And I had a small kid, a small baby, that I left behind, and she was only 3 months old. And he harassed me over and repeatedly because I didn't have the information because of my boyfriend. My boyfriend was the one who was, committing the crime. But because I wanted a way out of the project, I dealt with him. And this cop would harass me because, he said that he would make my life hell if I didn't give him up. But the boyfriend fled, and I didn't know where he was, so I couldn't give him up. And in the meantime, I was locked up, and I had this overworked court-appointed lawyer who didn't give a care, who just said, take the 5 years, and I only saw him twice. Take the 5 years, and that's it. So being scared and horrified, I took the 5 years because I wanted to come home to my kid. So I wrote to the judge and asked for a speedy trial, and I got the speedy trial. But what I didn't know is that all the people, 20 people other than myself, that J.J. Terrell had indicted, they dismissed the cases. But I had already pleaded guilty, me and another guy, so we were the only one who was sentenced, who did the time. Everybody else was set free. So there wasn't much of anything that I could do because I had pleaded guilty. So I had wrote the courts and everything, and I didn't get much results, but I spent the time. And everything, felt so hopeless to me. And I just didn't know what to do. So I just served my time and trying to get home to my girl. And
Would you like to ask them, what question you want to?
okay, I'm about to. If elected DA, what would you do to prevent this from happening? And do you agree to end money bail? Should it be steps in your solution?
Judge Fazell.
Okay, let me answer the first part first, and then I'll go to money bail. What I would do as district attorney to address that, this happens more often than you all realize. Police officers will harass somebody when they know they're wrong and they're going to be exposed. They just dismiss the case. So then what do? It's nothing to fight. It doesn't hit the news. You weren't wrongfully convicted. They just dismiss it. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to get a real simple one-page form that you come down to my DA's office and fill out, complaining on this officer. Now, I have nothing against good officers. My brother-in-law is a lieutenant in the police department in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have a problem with bad officers. We got to weed them out. Have a one-page form, and you come up there and fill it out and say, Officer JJ did this. So I know, because I won't know all that. Usually you file it with IAD, which is in the police department. Sometimes people don't file. They're like, I'm going to file with the police department. The police department is harassing me. So they don't file it, but it's important to document, even if they do nothing about it. I met with Police Chief Renee Hall. I think she's going to be great. She's off to a good start. First thing I want to do as soon as I get in, if you guys vote me in, is sit down with her and say, Chief Hall, how can we coordinate? Let's look at the stack. We got JJ on here 50 times in my stack. I've told him to come to the DA's office and file on me, but I'm not over the police officers. What do you have in your stack? Anybody file with you in IED? JJ, again, you got a stack on JJ. I do too. Okay, we got to do something about JJ. Because it's the same officers. When you look over at Box Springs, I was a judge in Box Springs for 9 years. That little boy, Jordan Edwards, that was killed 15 years old, unarmed, that same officer had harassed somebody before, and the DA's office wouldn't even file it. Then after the shooting came up and they killed that boy, then they went back and got that other case. It's the same officer, same mindset. We got to do something about it early before it gets to that point.
Thank you, Judge Curzon.
So to answer your question, that's obviously a problem, and I apologize on behalf of anyone involved in the criminal justice system for what you went through, and it shouldn't happen. But what's the solution? So the solution is obviously, if you come to me, we're going to look into that. We're going to look into that police officer. We're going to look at the police officer's file through IAD, the Internal Affairs Division, and we're going to look at it and see if in fact that is the situation where that is an officer who is of low to no credibility, then your case ought to be reopened and perhaps dismissed. That happens all the time. Don't think that I don't have police officers that come up with problems and issues, okay? Or that I discover, for example, recently, that a police officer told an individual what the color of a person's hair would be in the lineup, told him what position he would be in the lineup, and then told him he would in fact be in the lineup, okay? What did I do? Reported him. To who? The DA's office. What did they do? Reported him. To who? Internal Affairs Division. What did they do? Unfortunately, not much. But I did all I could do, and that was the point. You bring that to me, we'll open it up, we'll take a look. If you're entitled to relief, we'll do it.
So I'm gonna ask the both of you then, around that issue, will there be some policy in place in your office that would show the clear violation, or would someone have a chance to come up and just kind of contradict the policy because the policy isn't in place?
Well, Officer JJ is going to be right on my statistics on my website. JJ's a problem. Officer JJ, look what he's doing so the public knows. And they'll harass Chief All into getting rid of him. It needs to be transparency. People don't know which officers are doing what. They don't know which officers are good or bad. Just make it transparent. I know I don't hire or fire officers, so I'm not going to sit here and make you a bunch of promises I can't keep. Everything I'm telling you I'm going to do it. That's why I try to make sure I think about it before I make a policy or tell you how I'm going to do this. If we have that system where they have these filed complaints with me and with the chief of police, and we put it on the website, you all will know which officers need to go. And then she'll eventually get rid of, I think she's fair-minded. She'll get rid of or discipline the ones that need to be disciplined. But can we also answer that bail bond question, which is the second part?
Yes.
Bail bonds. Now, I've been saying the whole time, really for 23 years, they thought I was crazy 20 years ago. Now they're listening. Bail bonds should not be based on money. Bail bonds should not be based on money. That doesn't make our society more safe. If you're locking somebody up because they don't have money, we're not safer. Here's how I want to do the system as DA. Number one, we need to base it just like on the juvenile system. I did this for 13 years. In the juvenile system, there's no money in their bonds. Whether or not somebody gets out of detention, they have a hearing, a fact-based hearing. I call it RAP, Risk Assessment Profile. We did the same thing in my family violence court for 8 years. We called it LAP, Lethality Assessment Profile. You have a hearing, you determine what are they accused of, is there a prior criminal record, what is the risk they will abscond, do they have ties to the community? This is what the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure says we're supposed to consider. But we don't do it. We do it the same way because that's the way it's always been done. My daddy told me if you want something you never had, you got to do something you've never done. Let's change this cash system on the bail bonds.
Judge Cuso, you want to?
Yes, absolutely. The bail bond system. In fact, I was just the other day going through some papers, I don't know, organizing some stuff, and I found where back in 2015, I'd been up in New York working with the Arnold Foundation on reforming pretrial detention and bail bonds. And we were talking about cash and the lack of money and poor people and who's in jail and who's not. I sent all that to the commissioners, or at least to a couple of them here, but it wasn't a sexy thing. Nobody had sued Harris County, and it went nowhere. It didn't get paid attention to. Okay, but the reality of it is our current system of bail bond is wrong, it's unconstitutional, it's unethical, it's immoral, we need to change it. Okay, a poor person should not be required to stay in jail because they cannot post a bond. We all agree on that. Okay, we have to work collaboratively. We have to work to get staff to implement it, and that's going to come from whom? The Commissioner's Court. You have to get the judges to agree, because the judges are going to be the first person at the magistrate. So it's not something that the DA, him or herself, is going to do alone. It's going to be done collaboratively. And unless you're willing to do that and understand that, nothing's going to happen. And right now, we don't have quite everybody on board, but we're working in that direction, and we should soon have something in place to make this system fair and make it right and make it work well for everybody.
Could I follow up very briefly?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. You hire 3 magistrates, put them at the jail, round the clock. We do it already right now, but they rubber stamp whatever we say as judges. You hire 3 prosecutors, 3 public defenders. Put all of them at the jail, round the clock, and you have those hearings 24/7. Don't tell them to rubber stamp what we say as district judges, but you base it on the facts so they can get out in a fact-based hearing that requires no money.
May I respond to that?
10 seconds.
Yeah. You need somebody other than the magistrate to run the risk assessment tool. Okay? So if you go online, look at risk assessment tools, you can do them in a few short minutes, but that's not what the judge's role is. Somebody else has to do that. That's why I say this has to be a collaborative effort. You're not going to do it without it.
All right, let's move to the next question. We have another partner here from the Workers' Defense Project, Ms. Diana Ramirez. She's going to ask a question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Ramirez.
Diana? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Correct me.
Well, a year ago, my family went through our worst nightmare. My oldest brother, who's just 2 years older than me, was arrested for possession of a low amount of an illegal drug. Just short after he was arrested, he was turned to ICE. Last year on Father's Day weekend, he was deported to a country that he had not seen in 17 years. Now, I know that we've had several questions around this issue, right? But do you think prosecutors should use their discretion to minimize immigration consequences for a defendant in cases like that of my brother? If elected, how would you plan to do that? And in what cases would you want prosecutors in your office to keep immigration consequences in mind?
Judge Cusack.
Can I get you to come back up? Because you asked 3 questions. I want to make sure I get them right. Okay. Hit me with your first one again.
Do you think prosecutors should use their discretion to minimize immigration consequences for a defendant in cases like that of my brother?
Yes, is the answer to that. I think they should use their discretion. In fact, I think it should not even be an issue, okay? Discretion all the way down to not even an issue. Your brother should be dealt with on the facts of his case, not his status in the United States, whether he's documented or not. That should not be an issue. So it would be discretioned out of being a factor, if I can answer it that way.
Second question.
Yes.
If elected, how would you plan to do that?
By policy in the office and by penalty if they do it.
Someone from Workers' Defense, are you guys writing this? In what cases would you want prosecutors in your office to keep immigration consequences in mind?
In each and every case. And let me tell you something. Let me go back. In divert court, a significant portion of our population were undocumented individuals from various and sundry countries. We didn't have to keep them in that program, and we could have reported each and every one of them. Instead, we kept them in the program. Just to give you an idea, I'm not just talking, I'm just giving you some answers so you can feel good when you walk out of here. I'm talking about something I've done, okay? They were the better part of our population in our program, and they were allowed to finish, and their cases were dismissed, and they didn't suffer immigration consequences. They got to stay in the United States if they wanted to or go to whatever country they wanted to. So what you're talking about is something I've already done. And I did that for 15 years when I was presiding over the divert court. So this is nothing new to me. We've done this, we can do it, we will do it, and anything less than that will not be tolerated.
Okay, well, I practiced in Judge Crusoe's court for 20 years. I didn't see you doing that, but for my clients. But the short answer is yes. Yes. What you do as a DA, number one, I won't be accepting trace cases of drugs. I don't care what the drug is, trace. And for those of you that don't know trace, I've had cases where they've gotten in somebody's back seat and scraped white powdery substance off, and it was about enough for your fingernail, and filed a drug case on them. And then they had a hold, and they got deported. A trace amount, like, you kidding me? Scraping it off the that's, please, I won't even accept those filings. I had the power to do that as district attorney. Now, that's the trace cases. But also, any nonviolent misdemeanors, what are we deporting them for? I'll take assault family violence out of that. Because I was an assault family violence judge, and some of them, what they want to do is get deported and they don't have to answer for their charges. That's not right. That's not fair. That doesn't help the victims. I'm going to get you visas on all of them, so I have to stay here. The victims can come and testify. They used to deport, make sure their wives, usually was females, would get deported, so then they didn't have a case. Or sometimes they admit and just say, oh, deport me. because I don't want to answer for these assault cases. But if it's not a violent case and it's a misdemeanor, trespassing case, whatever it is that's a misdemeanor, first time DWI, if it's a nonviolent misdemeanor, why are we deporting? Is that making us safer by doing that? I don't think it is. If you guys had seen what I've seen for the past 23 years, you'd understand why I have this passion. That's how we get to this pipeline to prison, just what this young lady is talking about. The DA can change that. I want to reduce mass incarceration for those immigration cases where people should not be deported, as well as other cases where it might not be an immigration issue, but the DA shouldn't even be filing the cases. Those misdemeanor, nonviolent, first-time cases.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we are going to go to a very fun part of this forum. It's called a lightning round. We're going to ask a series of yes or no questions. When we ask each question and call on you, please say yes or no.
Okay.
Or I don't know. If you have any follow-up, you will have a minute after these questions to provide additional information. So we have provided the candidates with these questions ahead of time so that they will be prepared to answer them quickly and clearly. So let's start with question number 1, and I'll go to you, Judge Frizzell. Studies show that secure money bail is no more effective than non-secured money bail, and in fact can lead to devastating consequences for individuals and their communities. Will you commit to eliminating requests from your office for money bail as a condition of pretrial release?
Yes.
Judge Cruz.
Depending on the person.
Yes, no, or I don't know. Judge Cruz.
I'm gonna have to answer. I'm gonna have to answer the question based on the way it's asked. As for every single person, I would have to say no. It wouldn't apply to every single person.
Okay. Fair enough. And remember, I'm gonna give you a minute after this.
I understand.
Okay. So we'll start with you again. Will you commit to supporting statewide reform of money bail so that individuals are not detained prior to trial simply because they cannot afford the bail amount?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I answered that for you. Judge
Yes.
Frizzell. All
Yes.
right. Okay. Judge Frizzell, will you commit to not using an individual's immigration status as a reason to seek a higher bond?
Yes.
Judge Cruz.
Yes.
All right, Judge Cruz. Will you commit to complete U visa certifications regardless of whether charges were brought, a conviction was achieved, or the case has concluded? Judge Cruz.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by U visa certifications. Can you explain that? Because I might have a different idea about it.
I'm not sure because this wasn't written by me. Just work with me, okay?
Okay, the answer to my, will you work to complete? I think my answer is yes. I think, but we'll have time to explain. So I think my
Judge
answer
Frizzell.
is
Yes, U visas are used if you have a case where somebody's supposed to testify.
I'm gonna let you.
Yes.
I'm gonna let you come back to that.
Yes.
I promise you. All right. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna start with you on this next one.
Okay.
Will you commit to not seek life without parole for juveniles?
Yes.
Judge Cruzo.
yes.
All right. Would you commit to categorically refusing to seek the death penalty during your tenure? Judge Cruzo.
No.
Judge Frizzell.
No.
Will you commit to expanding diversionary programs so that, whenever possible, contact with the criminal justice system is avoided or limited? Judge Frizzell.
Yes.
Judge Cruzo.
Yes.
Will you commit to put statistics on the DA website every quarter that include information on all key decisions made by the prosecutor's office, including decisions regarding diversion, charging, pretrial detention recommendations, plea bargains, and sentencing recommendations with complete demographic information? Judge Frizzell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Judge Cruzo.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Will you commit to using civil asset forfeitures to seize personal property only after there has been a criminal conviction? Judge Cruzo.
You asking me?
Yes.
I'll give an explanation later. My answer is currently no.
Judge Frizzell.
Yes, absolutely. Can I explain it now or do I have to wait?
I'm gonna get back to you. I
Yes.
promise you.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Judge Frizzell, will you commit to developing and implementing a plan to meaningfully and regularly engage with the Dallas community, and in particular with the more marginalized communities within the county, and involve them in determining the priorities of your office during the first 100 days of your term? Judge Frizzell.
Yes, absolutely.
Judge Frizzell.
Yes.
Okay, we will now, wait a minute, before we move on, I want to give you guys a minute to clear up any one of those lightning questions that I was asked. And I'm going to start with you, Judge Frizzell.
I only have two things I want to explain. I'll go quickly. Number one, civil asset forfeiture. What happens right now if somebody's charged with a criminal offense and they believe there's any type of property connected with that criminal offense, which generally is cash, a car, or a house, then they seize that property and they put you in jail. The way the process works right now, while you're in jail, they have that forfeiture hearing. They take your money, your car, your house, then you get out of jail, and then you get a not guilty on the case. But your stuff is already gone. You know where that money goes? To the DA's office slush fund. You know where that money goes? To the police department so they can buy bulletproof vests. Well, we need bulletproof vests for police, but we don't need to do it that way. That gives them an incentive to go into a house where they know it wasn't really anything related to a crime. Case is going to be thrown out, but they've already seized their property. Here's what I'll do as DA. I will make sure they don't have that bond forfeiture here till you get out of jail. And you can show up to say, hey, wait, that was my boyfriend. That had nothing to do with me. That was my cash from my check. I just finished working and got my check. Death penalty, John Battaglia. Run out of time. He killed his two daughters on the phone with their mother to get back his biological daughters. He was just executed on Thursday. It's part of the reason that I can't say yes, I wouldn't be for the death penalty.
Judge Frizzell.
Asked a question. Which question do you want me to answer? U visa certification. Let me go back to that.
Yeah, whichever one you want to clear up.
All of the U visa certifications are different from different police agencies is the problem. That's why I can't answer it clearly, yes or no. What the federal government has done has given the agencies across the United States, police agencies, law enforcement agencies, sheriff's departments, et cetera, discretion on how to word their U visa policy. And so you have 30 filing jurisdictions in the county of Dallas with different policies, some more kind and liberal and others more restrictive. And so what we need to do is to go get a less restrictive policy on the person so that they can stay here without fear of being deported. But we need to do it consistently and across the board. And that's why the way the question was asked, I just could not give a clear answer. Okay, let's go on and move on to talk about forfeitures. You have to file a notice within 30 days. You have to change the law in order to not do a forfeiture because the law requires that you file a notice within 30 days if you're going to do the forfeiture. The way to solve the forfeiture problem is to get the legislature to change the law so that it's open to that you don't file the forfeiture until the person is found guilty. That's the solution to that problem. That's why I had to answer it the way I did. So that's the answer.
All right. So we will now move on to audience questions. For each question, candidates, you will have 1 minute to respond. These questions were chosen at random. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we will get to as many as we can. Our first question is this. What will you do to be a champion on exonerations during your tenure? Judge Frizzell.
Okay, and I think we touched on this a little bit earlier on exonerations. If we rebuild the Conviction Integrity Unit to up to 3 to 5 prosecutors, we bring the Innocence Project back in, we make sure exonerees are on the board to make recommendations to us to say, here's how I was wrongfully convicted. Here's how other people were wrongfully convicted. I've talked to some exonerees that said there's still people in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice right now wrongfully convicted. They tell them they're still stuck there. They were in the law library and helped them get out. We need to partner with them together to strengthen that unit to make sure who wants to wrongfully convict somebody. When you do that, the real rapist is still running around. We're not safer. The robber is still running around. The murderer is still running around. If we get a board like that and strengthen it, give it teeth, we can make sure we don't have any more wrongful convictions, and that's what I want to do during the first 100 days of my administration.
Judge Frizzell.
Well, I'll take less than 100 days, though I understand that it's a busy office and lots of things to do. But my understanding is that office, that unit does have 3 to 5 prosecutors in it right now. And I also know that we need to reform it. We need to refocus it. And as I said earlier, the most important thing to me is not just focus on old cases and past convictions, but to also focus on cases that are coming in, to be part of the training, to be part of the body of knowledge, so that we don't run into these problems, I think we both agree, on a future basis, whether it's DNA, bad eyewitness identification, witnesses that you can't believe, okay? Whatever it is, that office, that unit should be a part of it and should help guide the prosecutors, not only from time of inception, but all the way through appeal. And as far as exonerees being a part of it, of course, those who suffer know best. They should be a part. They should be a part of the conversation.
All right, next question. What will you do as a DA to reduce the incentive of police to arrest non-white people for non-violent offenses? Judge Frizzell.
Number one, I think we need to have training. A lot of times I think this happens between officers and the community because there's a disconnect. We dehumanize, we devalue because we can't relate to them. I've had prosecutors do it, and that's why I talked about training, where they're offering 10 years, they come down to 5, and they're like, well, 5, 10, whatever. 5, 10, whatever. If you serve that 5 years and see if it makes a difference, it's almost like, well, they can serve 5 more years. Okay, have a reason, a factually based reason. I think sometimes officers dehumanize people that are in the community that they police, and sometimes the community doesn't understand the relationship between them and the officers either. There's a disconnect. As DA, I want to help bring that together. We cannot have officers that are policing people that they never live in that community. I think we need to get back to community policing so there's some accountability. It's like the mother down the street when I grew up. She could spank us as well as my mama could spank me. But I knew she loved me too. I didn't just see her when it was time for a spanking. She'd say, I'm glad you got an A on your paper. We need both, positive and negative, from our officers.
Judge Frizzell.
Did you get spanked a lot?
I'm not going to tell you the answer to that.
I did.
All right, that's all right.
To answer.
I did. I take it.
All right, we're
whole
back to
neighborhood.
listening. Judge Frizzell.
Let me tell a story about that illustrates this, a true story. So I had a man in my court who was charged with littering. And it happened to be on the grounds of a liquor store. And so the excuse was to not give him a ticket, but to arrest him for littering. Now that's crazy. Technically it can happen, shouldn't, okay? African-American man, African-American community, Anglo police officer. Well, he ticketed him, he arrested him and found a gun on him, and then he charged him with a felony, not possession of a firearm on a liquor store premise. I took that case and actually went to Chief Click, who was the chief at the time, and had the transcript and showed it to him and said, this is dead wrong, and you know it, okay? He said, well, it's a high crime area. I said, I tell you what, why don't you stop everybody up on Northwest Highway in Hillcrest who's got a stoplight out or a tail light out or this, that, and the other, and arrest them. Don't give them a ticket, arrest them. He said, I could never do that. I said, I know. I said, you know why you couldn't do it? He said, why? I said, because they fire you in 3 weeks. Those who have no political power, those who have no one to speak for them, need people to speak for them. That's why I'm running for DA, because I understand that. I've seen there, I've done it, I've gone to the authorities, they changed the training as I understood, and that stuff stopped happening as I understood.
All right, well, we got one more question, and then we're going to kind of bring this to a wrap. And this is for the both of you. And Judge Frizzell, I'll give you a chance to answer first. What sets the two of you apart from each other on these issues?
What sets the two of us apart? Number one, my defense background. This is the first event I've been to where he didn't brag about having a prison named after him. I am fighting this system. Sometimes I feel like I'm just being honest, I'm fighting the Democrats and the Republicans sometimes. Here's the thing, when you fight against the system, they're not gonna reward you. When I first ran in 2002, that was before it was popular to run. Do you know these Republican judges? He was on the bench at that time. They took me off the court-appointed list. That was my punishment. How dare you run against us Republican judges? That's not their personal bank account. That's taxpayer money. They said I could no longer represent indigent people. They wanted to make me an example to show other people, don't you run against us, you don't do this. That was my punishment. So I just started doing retained cases and got some more judgeships in different places. But you shouldn't be able to do that. I've been a defense lawyer 13 years fighting in the trenches to do all of this that I'm talking to you about. But you know what? One of my most important endorsements is Texas Organizing Project. If you look at our endorsements, he's got establishment endorsements. I've got grassroots people. I didn't think anybody would even support me. This was a faith walk. I know what I've lived and what I believed. I'm doing this for the people that have appeared in front of me and that I've represented. Texas Organizing Project is a grassroots organization. They interviewed both of us. They felt like I would speak for the people. I want to be a voice for those who have no voice.
Judge Cuso.
Well, I congratulate her on her Texas Organizing Project endorsement, but the fact of the matter is every Democratic group in this town who's had an opportunity, and it's almost all of them at this point, to have an opportunity to decide who should be the next Democratic DA candidate has chosen myself, with the exception of one. We got a co-endorsement, and that's fair, okay? But let's talk about, I don't have a prison named after me. I have a treatment center named after me. It's called the Judge John C. Creusot Treatment Center. It's in Dallas County. It's for 300 people. 300 souls who are trying to get their lives back together, who are trying to collect up things for themselves. Every time you send somebody to treatment and you make them well, you help them and you help their family. Every time you send somebody to the penitentiary, you do what? You send them and their family to the penitentiary. I too have defense experience. The big difference between the two of us is I have accomplishments. I have the Divert Court and other programs like it. 50 to 60% reduction in rearrests. For every dollar spent, $9.34. The whole criminal justice system changed based on those models. We retrained people. I named off 8 prisons that have closed.
You didn't
That's
close
not, I did, that have closed as a result of the model that we put together. I'm not taking personal credit, but it started somewhere and it ended up with 8 prisons being closed.
Fantastic. Thank you, candidates. Can we give them all a round of applause? I think it's been a fantastic forum with a lot of information. I think we all should leave out here feeling very informed about these 2 candidates. If you would like to hear more from the candidates, we'd like to notify you of another candidate forum. On Sunday, February 26th, Faith in Texas is hosting a district attorney candidate forum at St. Luke's Community United Methodist Church from 5 to 7 p.m. If you would like additional information, there are flyers in the back.
They told us the 25th. I don't know.
Okay, they got the 26th on here, so the candidates thinking the 25th. It's the 25th? The candidates are correct, and Faith in Texas got to step their game up. Come on now. 25th. Okay, it is at St. Luke's Community United Methodist Church from 5 to 7 p.m. And that is on the 25th. Thank you. I'd now like to hand it over to our ACLU of Texas Executive Director and Champion, Ms. Terry Burke. Thank you.
Was this a great event or what? This was terrific. And I want to, let's one more time thank these candidates for coming out and being so honest with us. Thank you. I also want to thank our staff. I want to thank some of our board members who were here from the Dallas area. That was great of them to turn out today. I want to thank some of our colleagues from our national office. Udi Ofer, Taylor Pendergast, Ari Rasmussen came out from New York to be here today, and we're very grateful for that. I really want to thank Anthony Williams. What a guy, huh? Yeah. President Sorrell and the folks here at Paul Quinn College, we are so grateful to be in your house today. Thank you so much for hosting us. I want to thank all of our advisory board members here in Dallas who you heard from today. Dominic Walker, thank you. Roderick Johnson, Robbie Frazier, Richard Miles, and Roderick McNeely, Pearline Harper of the Texas Organizing Project, and Deanna Ramirez from Workers' Defense. Thank you for helping today. Our good friend Eddie Reeves, thank you for helping us pull this all together. It's been terrific. I want to thank, most of all of you for coming here today and being part of this, for being interested and willing to be educated about this really important issue, this really important race that's in front of us. We know that our national lawmakers are not going to help us fix the criminal justice system. And after the last legislative session, I'm pretty sure the folks in Austin aren't going to help us. What I am certain of, and who I am counting on, is all of you. You can do this. You will make this happen. If we're going to bring about lasting change, real change in our justice system, it's going to happen, it's going to start in rooms like this one, but it's not going to end in rooms like this one. Once we get a new district attorney, however many promises they make, it's going to be up to you to make sure they hold those promises close to their chest and don't let us down. You're going to be here to make that happen. So study the issues, know what you're doing, know who you're voting for. We will change the Texas we live in. We will have a Texas we can believe in. We will change this country.